Thank you.
So, the film has been nominated for BAFTA, and you've been nominated for Best Director. How does that make you feel? Yes!
That's good, thank you. I'm still a little bit surprised, if I'm honest. Like, I like the film, I think the film was good, but I'm still a little bit surprised. Like, I really didn't expect that, you know, it would be taken like it has been taken and people have liked it so much. So, yeah, it's nice, it's good.
Good. So let's get to some of the questions. One of many things I love about this film, Andrew, is the layers and textures that you've added to it. But whenever I come to your work, I always come with a sense of trepidation. I always feel like I'm going to be sort of battered about emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. And with this one, I felt like I had been caught in an unexpected car crash. So when you start on your projects, do you have in mind and in your heart what you want the audience to feel and experience?
I guess so. Like, or more than that, I know what I think I want to explore within it. For me, what I'm interested in, or even if I can't articulate it as I'm writing, or even when I'm making the film. It's so weird when you come and talk about the film, and I've been talking about it now for like 6 months. I think it's since the premiere in America. And you spend the whole time articulating what it is that you've done. But at the time of making it, you don't actually necessarily know what it is that you're doing. You're just trying to explore and understand something. But I do know that with this, I wanted the audience to have an emotional reaction to it. I didn't want to be too afraid of sort of allowing that to come to the surface, because it is a film about looking back, and there is a sense that, you know, if you're looking back and you're looking at themes of love and loss, there's no point trying to be too restrained, because those things are big, massive themes. So yeah, I knew I wanted it to have an emotional impact.
I think you succeeded. One of the elements I love is the music by Emily LeVay's like at the first scene when you have that sustained note, and then it goes down, and how that put me in a sort of liminal hypnotic space, and the way it bridges from one scene and you carry us through to the other, and the ambient sounds, like when Adam's looking at his dad and you hear that ominous car screech, and with Jamie Bell when you hear his voice from the porch going into the interior. Do you work with composers, and how do you choose these elements?
Yes, it was the first time I'd worked with Emily, and I've worked with maybe he's here, the sound designer, Joachim Sundström. He lives in Brighton, maybe he's not, but he lives in Hove, the sound designer, and I've worked with him before, and we talk a lot about trying to get the right soundscape for the film. It's so important to help you get into a certain space. And with the score, it was the same. And I knew I wanted all the pop music that's in it. They were very much in the script, and those songs were all really, really important for the film. But trying to bridge that, I was like, I don't know how you do that. And also, you know, and to keep the film in this sort of like space that feels real, but isn't quite real, and kind of drags you deeper into this sort of dreamscape, I guess you could call it, or as you say, this liminal space. She did an amazing job at getting those tonal textures right.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like Alice falling through the rabbit hole. Has your early experience of being an editor helped or hindered, you know, were crafting this at all?
Look, I think all the things that happen to you help. You know, I think, you know, what you make as a film is just built up of all the different things you've experienced, both through work and through life, I suppose. So editing was really useful in terms of just working out how to tell a story, the way that I want to tell a story. There's lots of different ways, obviously, to tell a story. But, you know, it's a good way in editing to understand how you craft performance and how you sustain a performance. You know, you're putting together lots of different parts of different takes. So it definitely was really useful, you know. Or in fact, it was probably most useful in working out what the type of films are that I want to make. Like, I worked on Gladiator and Notting Hill and all these quite big films, and clearly this is not Gladiator or Notting Hill. Although Paul Mescal is in Gladiator, the new one now, so maybe there was some strange connection.
Yeah, very good. When did you realise that you wanted to be a writer and a director, coming from the editing background? Was that one day like, I can do that?
I think it took a long time for me to to sort of decide that I could do it or was going to give it a go. Like I didn't make anything. I think I made my first short film in my late 20s. So it took a long time, and I did history at university. I didn't like do anything film related. So it just took a long time, and I think it is about developing both confidence that you can do it, and just understanding your own voice and what that might be. So it took time. I mean, I'm still doing it now, trying to build on whatever that is and trying to work it out. But
was there a moment when you thought, I'm going to actually give this a go and be brave enough to follow my heart?
I don't know, really. My partner's here, maybe he can tell me when it was. I can't remember. I think I just got bored of not doing it, I think is the truth of it. I think it was like, I've got to do this. And I was working as an assistant editor, and I was like, I can't do this job anymore. This is driving me crazy. Not that it's not a good job being assistant editor, but I was like working for other people on their films, other directors, other editors, and I was like, I've got to somehow try and make that move and take a risk.
Yeah. Why do you think there's a need in us to be creative?
Look, I think it's being creative is just your desire or your need to understand yourself and understand the world you live in. I mean, that's all. I think that my films are trying to understand myself and the world around me, or how I see the world. So I think that is just the creative urge. I'm sure lots of people have that in whatever creative way they express themselves. And, I can't paint, I can't make music, I couldn't write a novel. So this is what the thing is that I've found that I can do, hopefully can do.
Well, yes. One of the other textures I liked was the lighting, the colour palette of the whole film. I thought was beautiful all the way through it. But some of the lighting really struck me when Adam follows his dad off the field, and it's almost like a twilight, and then he arrives home and it's dark, and you've got that porch light there, and then they go inside and you've got the other light there, and then the light over Adam's head like a halo. I'm curious, how do you go about crafting those elements? Is it against, like when you're on set and you go, oh, I'm going to put that light there, or is it, in the writing process and you go, yeah, I'm going to have this light?
It's not in the writing process, but it's definitely in the discussion process, when you're with your heads of department. So when you're with your DP and your costume designer, and you all sit down together and you go through the script, and you're just working out tonally how you want the film to feel, and you give it over to the creatives that you're working with in order to come back with ideas, and you discuss what works and what doesn't work. And it's all just about creating the overall mood and the tone. And, I think we all understood what we wanted the colour palette to be, and we understood how we wanted it to feel, and we understood how we wanted to paint the walls in the childhood bedroom or whatever that might be. So it was always about making those decisions that, just make the most sense. And then you sort of all hope you're on the same page and everyone's doing the right thing and building to the common goal or whatever it is.
So I'm assuming that you have the final call on that, though.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, look, you want the job of a director is to work with the best people that you can and allow them to do the best work they can. But in the end, of course, it is on your shoulders about what you think is right and not right. Like every day when you're on set, it's 1,000 decisions that you have to make. Everyone is like, what about this? What about this? Does the camera go here? Does it go there? Is this the right performance? And you just have to keep making those decisions. Second after second.
How do you keep sane?
Don't keep sane. You go back home and then you scream into your pillow and you have nightmares all night, and then you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh God, I can't do this. And then you go to work and then you're happy that you've got through the day and you feel like you've captured something that's special. And that's all you're trying to do. You're trying to capture whatever that magic is that you need on the screen, and you just you just have to listen and watch carefully.
Interesting. So the chemistry in this is palpable, isn't it? Brilliant, the actors you have got. And on paper, it can always look good, but it doesn't always happen, as we all know. Why did your instincts choose these particular actors for this particular piece?
Again, I think it is just instincts. We found Andrew first. Andrew was who we went to immediately when we were casting, and he just felt like the right person. Loved him as an actor before, and then I felt this was something different and interesting, and I knew that he would connect with it on a personal level, clearly. You know, he's gay and he's grew up in the 80s and he understood what that felt like back then and how that, you know, how that has ramifications for who you are as an adult. He understood all of those things. And I knew he would throw himself completely into that role. And then you go onwards from there. Then we cast Claire, and I knew, you've got to find someone that makes sense as Andrew's mum, even though she's younger than him, and they sort of look like each other, I think. There's some strange resemblance, but also she was so desperate to be his mum. Like when I spoke to her about the role, she's like, I just want to play Andrew's mum. That's all I want to do. I don't want to do anything else ever again in my life. I want to play his mum. I'm like, why? But I think it speaks to why there is a chemistry between those two. Because, you know, she wanted to mother him and look after him and be there for him and all those things that mothers do. So that's why she was, wanted to do the role. And then just went on with Jamie and Paul and, they're all just fantastic actors and, crazy happy that they said yes.
Do you ever, talking of Claire Foy, one of the bits that was like an arrow in my heart was right at the beginning when they have that introduction and she just goes, hi. Just done beautifully. Do you ever find that you become intimidated by actors? Because basically you're working with Billy Elliot, the Queen, and the Hot Priest, aren't you? so does that ever do you ever have moments when you go, oh my God?
I think every job I've done, the first day you're terrified and you think, I don't know what I'm going to say, and you do the first take and you're like, oh, I don't know what to say now, and they're gonna think I know nothing. But the truth is they're as nervous as I am, and I don't think it matters how many times they've been in something. They're always just as nervous because they're standing there on set in front of you and the whole crew, and everyone's saying, well, you're Claire Foy or you're whoever, you must be able to act. Are you good enough? So that's how they feel. So I think everybody's nervous, and that helps me. It's like imagining that you're all naked, I suppose, in the audience. It's a similar thing. You just work out that everybody's, naked. Yeah, naked. But they're, I'm not intimidated anymore too much.
Wonderful. So how do you, what am I trying to say here? I'm curious about your directing style. Are you a micromanager, or are you more like, that's lovely, darlings, give me more of that?
I don't know if I've ever said it like that, but I start trying to speak like that. I think it's always for them to say more than I can. I feel like the job of a director is to be like a parent. So you're on set, and when they need you, you're there, and when they don't need you, you stand back and you push them forward to do the best that they can do. So I feel like that is what the job of a director is, especially when you're working with actors. It's just about that. And so you just watch and you listen, and you know when they need help or something's not working or they don't. You can just see it in their eyes. You can see it in their faces. You can see the terror behind their eyes that they don't think something is working. And often that's not their fault. That could be the line doesn't work or the camera's in the wrong position or whatever it might be. But you just have to be really, really there for them, and in many ways for everybody on the crew, like for the DP and everybody. And I feel like that's how I approach it anyway. But then I also know what it is I want. I know how I want the film to feel, and when it doesn't feel like I want it to feel, then I will, change it and make it feel like I want it to feel. So it's just being, you can call it a parent, or maybe it's a gentle dictator, I'm not sure. Yeah. But maybe that's the same thing.
Yeah, benevolent dictator.
I will say that I think my mum's in the audience, so. And my real mum, not the ghost of my mum. It's my real mum there.
So, I understand that you filmed this in your childhood home when you were like 9 or something. And I heard you say that your eczema came back when you were filming it. And how sort of strange and unexpected was that? And I'm wondering, did you find yourself regressing in any other way or dealing with any unexpected emotions and feelings that came up?
Yeah, it's a strange thing. I mean, I did it sort of just because I was writing about a character going back to his first house, let's say, his childhood home. So I couldn't just get my own out of my mind. And actually, I think I even left there earlier than that age. It was even slightly earlier than that. But still, it was so imprinted on my mind. And I'm 50 now, so it's a long time ago. I've not been back there, for over 40 odd years. But it was so imprinted on my mind, and that just really fascinated me, how much it's still part of me, that place. And so it just made sense to try and go back and see if we could film there, and we could film there. And then I recreated it to look a little bit like it used to look when we were there, and and as my mum here will know, we got the same sofa as in there, and I put the bad stone fireplace back on the wall, and so there was a similar sense.
How did she
to it.
feel about all that?
Who, my mum?
Your mum, sort of going, oh my God.
Well, she wasn't there, so she doesn't. But I was in. She didn't go back to the house and we were filming it. But I think when they watch it, like my mum watches it now, I'm sure it's very strange. Yeah. I think my aunties might be here too, so they'll remember that house as well. Oh yeah, hello. Hi. So I think it's a weird experience for my family and like my brother, who also grew up in that house. Yeah. So when he sees it on his screen, there's part of his life out there too. So I'm sure it's strange.
So, but I'm fascinated by that sense of timelines and how everything does go through our timeline and it does leave a mark. I find the eczema thing fascinating, like the mind-body connection and our emotions and feelings. Did it bring up stuff?
Yeah, I mean, of course it does. Of course it brings up all kinds of stuff, and anything when you go back and think about, the past, it brings up stuff. It's inevitable, of course it does. And, the film, I agree with you that I think the body does keep the score. It does remember things from the past. And it was, look, my eczema did come back up again, or it could have just been, there's mould in that house. So it could have just been as simple as that, and not some emotional, cathartic thing that was going on. But I do know that Andrew Scott as well, he had physically, he was feeling all kinds of things in his body as we were making the film. And I do think both of us were going back to deal with some painful things of growing up at that time gay and all that kind of feeling that we had back then. And it did bring up a lot in both of us. And, we would talk about it, before and after takes. And, it's so much, so whatever has happened to you in the past, it lives very, very close to the surface. Whether you've lost people or, any trauma, big and small, whatever that might be, it lives very, very close to the surface. And of course it finds its way to come out when you least expect it.
Was it cathartic then for you all, do you think? Do you feel different now than when you started, or are you still like, oh no, I've still got all that trauma?
Look, I feel like if everyone had hated the film, then I'd be a mess now.
Do you hate it?
Good, thank you. But I feel like there was a slightly nerve-wracking thing, like when something does feel more personal, when you put it out into the world, you feel like there's more of a weight on it personally, and how you're gonna feel if people don't respond to it, or they really don't care about it, or no one gives a shit about it. Look, I think every film I've made is cathartic to some degree. Every film I make is trying to explore something, and by the end you hope you've understood it a little bit better. And I think with this film and all the films, there's not a definitive answer about what it is, and that's good for me. Like, I feel like that's what keeps me making things, is thinking there's something else to uncover next time.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Has this film influenced your relationship with your family, your mum and your brother and all that kind of stuff? And
way
also,
too weird to ask right now. We're sitting in the audience, Jesus.
And also, you're a dad. Has it affected your parenting?
I think it's made me understand parenting perhaps a little bit more than anything else. Like, I did want this to be a film about being a child and being a parent. Like, of course, parents are also children of someone else, and it doesn't matter how old you get, you still feel like you're that kid. And I think that's an important thing to remember when you look back and think about choices your parents might have made, for example. You have to remember how old they were at that time and what they were going through and the stuff that they had to deal with.
One more question, and I'm going to go to the audience just to prepare you. I feel your films address on a very cellular level the sense of loneliness and disconnection, but also the milk of human kindness, which is really important. But we seem to be kind of going into a dark phase now. So your films, I think, feel like they want to transcend labels and identification, but is it more important than ever now to keep that sense of identification? I don't want to use the word labels, but you know what I mean. So, do you understand my question?
Yeah, look, I think like we probably are going into quite a dark time, but I think what doesn't help in that time is sort of setting up false expectations of what our lives can be. And I think for this, I wanted this film to be almost a sort of compassionate hug to everybody that's watching it, to say life is difficult, like everybody loses things, everybody loses people they love, everyone struggles with intimacy, all of those things that we all deal with every day. And it's not all going to end up, you know, rosy, because it doesn't end up rosy, because you'll end up dead. So it's not going to end up rosy. But, you know, love and compassion and understanding and being known and trying to know other people can soften the edges of all of that. So I do feel like it's important in times of like struggle that we remember that there is a struggle and everybody is struggling through stuff, but there is a way to just sort of not solve it, but like make things a little bit easier maybe.
Questions? Anyone got any questions?
Is the film difficult for you to watch?
Not. I mean, I don't watch it anymore, so no. I've watched it twice since the release, since it came out at the festivals back in September. But obviously, I've watched it 10,000 times when I was working on it. When I first watched the film, like the assembly, it was very hard to watch in a good way, actually. Often when I watch films, I'm like, oh, my films, when I first get it, I'm like, oh God, it doesn't work. But this time I watched this, I'm like, oh, it's really hitting me emotionally. And it was quite a tough watch. But, you know, for me, it's now, even when I watch it, it's a succession of choices and decisions and things I've tried to get on the screen. So I can never watch it as a film. So it might be tough, but it's tough for me because I'm like, maybe I could have done that or I could have done that. But for me, I always really need the film to sort of not be in my life anymore. And it's why I don't really watch it with audiences apart from the first time, because I just want it to be whatever it is for the audience now, and I don't want to sort of still have to go through watching it with anybody.
Mirrors, I just wanted to talk about. In this film, you've got mirrors, and you know, obviously mirrors reflect, but they distort. What's the artistic intent behind that?
Look, I love a mirror. Who doesn't love a mirror? But I do think that they, you know, especially when you're struggling with something, let's say, the mirror gives you a reflection of yourself. And how often do you look at yourself and be like, that's not me. I don't feel like that's me anymore.
The older I get.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're giving a projection to the world that isn't who you are. And I think especially when you're like a queer kid growing up, you're so hiding all the time and projecting something so different to the world than what it is that's inside you. So I think I'm always interested in that kind of reflection and reality thing. And then with this film, you know, I just see those reflections as being a manifestation of how his emotional state is developing through the story. And so they help, I think, sort of tell that part of the story.
Yeah.
Perhaps for me, it doesn't feel so much about the disconnect between the past and the present, but more how the past is always impacting the present. And that sometimes you need to go back and stare at it like directly in the face and be like, okay, that is my past. That is my life. This is who I am as an adult because of that. And do I need to change something or unpick it or recalibrate? Like he's, you know, Adam in this story is having a reunion with his parents, but he's also having a reunion with himself and his past self and what that meant. You know, so I think it's more about the impact of the past rather than a sort of disconnect between the past and the present.
It's sort of like living with the past, but not living in the past, isn't it, really? If ever I do an interview, I ask people this question: what is love to you, Andrew?
Jesus. I've just made it. I've just done it in that film. I think that love is about what you can give to somebody else more than what they can give to you. Like I think when you're a kid, what you're wanting and get from your parents is compassion and protection and understanding. And as an adult, we sort of forget that, and we think that that's not what love is about. But I think love is about you being there for other people when they need you.
Being of service to humanity.
Yeah, and just realizing that everybody needs like safety and protection and all of those kind of things, and that romantic love is so closely linked with familial love. They're the same thing, and I think sometimes we try and separate those two things together, separate them away from each other, and I think they're so closely related.
Well, I could speak with you all night about this, as I'm sure the audience will, but I think we've come to the end, so please give a fantastic welcome.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.